Hello, folks. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. We'll give the rest of the folks a little bit more time to log in. Okay, well, let's get started. Dawn, if you want to go ahead and advance to the next slide. Just in case you weren't with us yesterday, I'm going to run through the housekeeping things while other folks get logged in. My name's Angela Barger. I'm the ESI Program Manager. I just want to welcome all of you to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality's ESI ISO 50001 Overview webinar. This is day 2. Day 1 was recorded, and we'll get that posted up as soon as we are finished today's and it gets downloaded as well. So you're going to hear from myself and Marcia Alaco, our section chief of the Environmental Assistance section of the DEQ's Division of Environmental Assistance and Customer Service, as well as Don Burke, who is our membership and outreach coordinator. The 3 of us are the staff that routinely provide EMS or environmental management system training to assist our members with EMS implementation. But a lot of our members had expressed an interest in this energy management system, so we decided we would do this overview class for you guys. Hopefully it's helpful just to kind of hear what's in the energy management system for ISO. We don't plan to get too in depth with this as far as our assistance goes, but we do know some partners that can provide you with more one-on-one assistance, which we'll talk about at the end of our slides today. So we do need to be sure to thank our partners at the Land of Sky Regional Council and Waste Reduction Partners for their assistance with providing the GoToWebinar software and the logistics behind that. And also WRP is one of those resources that you can definitely reach out to for energy audits and assistance. Okay, Dawn, next slide. Just a few housekeeping things before we dig in. If you're having audio issues, don't forget that you can switch over to the phone for that. You can look at your emails and see the phone number and code that's within those reminders, or you can click on the little phone button within the software and it'll give you a number. So again, we're recording, so we'll have those available for you later. There are also a couple of handouts in the section, in that handout section of the webinar toolbar. So if you didn't grab those yesterday, you'll want to grab those today. One of those is the updated PDF of our slides after the corrections that we made. So if you got that one yesterday, you may want to go ahead and download it again today anyway, just for those minor corrections. All right, next. We have everybody currently muted. So that just helps us to prevent feedback and eliminate unintended background noise. But we do encourage everybody who would like to ask questions to go ahead and type those into the question box, and we will address those as we can. And if we need you to provide some additional clarification, we can unmute you and have you speak. So we'll let you know as that happens. So hopefully everybody is ready to go, and we'll knock out the rest of the ISO 50001 elements today. So yesterday we talked about what just generally what an energy management system is. We talked about the plan, do, check, act cycle and how ISO 50000 fits into that model. We talked about those framework pieces of context and interested parties, and also, you know, the roles and responsibilities and top management and their function within it, as well as policy and scope. And then we went into that planning section, you know, how do you set baselines and what indicators that you're going to be measuring in your energy standard, and then setting goals, energy goals, and the data that you would need to set that up. So today we're going to talk through the rest of those sections of that plan, do, check, act. So we're in the do, check, and act today. So I'm going to turn it over to Dawn to start with do.
All right, thank you, Angela, and thank you everyone for joining us again today, as Angela said, for day 2. So we'll kick it off with support and operation. So in the ISO 50001 Energy Management System, Clause 7, support. This covers key requirements needed to implement an energy management system with reference to resources, competences, awareness, internal and external communication, and documented information. So the standard states in 7.1, the organization shall determine and provide the resources needed for the establishment, implementations, maintenance, and continual improvement of energy performance and the energy management system. Now, these resources include human resources, specialized skills, technology, data collection, infrastructure, and financial resources. The standard asks you to ensure that your organization has determined and provided the resources needed for the establishment, the implementation, the maintenance, and continual improvement of your management system. So you need to check that your organization has identified which resources it needs to make available in order to ensure the effective operation of your ENMS. Resources will often include raw materials, infrastructure, finance, personnel, and IT, all of which can be either internally or externally provided. And again, the energy management system must be properly resourced. So in order to operate an ENMS, you must consider the buy-in, if you will, from top management. And this is essential, as ultimately they have the decision to deploy or invest in the resources for your energy management system. Your organization also has to identify the correct resources it requires. As part of identifying resources, your organization needs to look at or acknowledge the risks and opportunities and resulting objectives and targets that have been identified and need deployment of resources to mitigate or manage them. Now, usually the greatest challenge is to provide competent and knowledgeable personnel to support the requirements of the energy management system. This is particularly so in relation to energy, as it is often a highly technical and specialized area that can sometimes only be catered for by having appropriate consultants to assist in-house employees. Now, creating a training needs matrix based upon what competency or awareness is required amongst organizations' employees will often highlight when competency has been achieved or is required. And I'll remind you about this again in a bit. So for example, if it has been identified that there's a need to undertake an energy assessment of, say, air conditioning equipment, then there needs to be appropriate competency and resources to carry this out. Okay, so 7.2, competence. The organization shall determine the necessary competence of persons doing work under its control that affects its energy performance and energy management system. Ensure that these persons are competent on the basis of appropriate education, training, skills, or experience. The organization shall, where applicable, take actions to acquire the necessary competence and evaluate the effectiveness of the actions taken. And the organization shall retain appropriate documented information, as Marcia and Angela stressed yesterday, highlighted in purple, as evidence of competence. Now, applicable actions can include, for example, the provision of training to, the mentoring of, or the reassignment of currently employed persons, or the hiring or contracting of competent persons. Now, it is important to determine the level of competence required to fulfill requirements and other performance measures, and ensuring competence of those involved, including training as required. I know I just mentioned this, but again, it's important. Usually the greatest challenge is to provide competent and knowledgeable personnel to support the requirements of your ENMS, particularly so in relation to energy. As I mentioned, it's highly technical, it's often a specialized area, and sometimes you have to bring in outside consultants to assist your in-house employees. So again, creating a training needs matrix, something you do or you may do for other elements of your process, such as a hazardous waste program, for example. That training needs metrics is based upon what competency or awareness is required amongst organizations' employees, and this will highlight when competency has been achieved or is required. Now, training alone may not be sufficient to demonstrate competence. This must be demonstrated through tests, observations, results. Auditors need to find objective evidence in order to determine whether competency requirements have been met. If the people are found not to be competent, your organization is required to take action. The actions taken need to be evaluated for effectiveness in raising competence to the required level. Now, examples of action may include remedial training or recruitment or the use of external people, as I mentioned, in order to acquire the necessary competence. And you'll see there on the right how it all ties together with the attitude, the skills, the knowledge, which equals competence. So 7.3 awareness. The standard states that persons doing work under the organization's control shall be aware of the following. And real quick, persons doing work. It could be in-house staff, be temporary staffing, it could be contractors, it could be your vendors coming onto your facility property. So persons doing work under the organization's control shall be aware of the energy policy stated in 5.2, their contribution to the effectiveness of the energy management system, including achievement of objectives and energy targets, and the benefits of improved energy. The impact of their activities or behavior with respect to energy performance. And really, really important, the implications of not conforming with the EMS requirements. And some of this may sound very, very familiar. It almost mirrors the 14,001 Environmental Management System Awareness Clause. Now, you should seek evidence to confirm, whoops, let me make sure I didn't, yep. You should seek evidence to confirm that this requirement has been applied by your organization to ensure that the people who need to be made aware of now include all the people who work on your organization's behalf that affect the conformity of your organization's energy management system or products. You ensure that these people are aware of the quality, the energy, environmental, and/or health and safety policies, their contribution to the effectiveness of the energy management system, benefits of improved performance, the implications of not conforming to energy management system requirements. The awareness training does not need to follow the format of long, drawn-out classroom sessions. Training techniques can include short training segments, supplemented with videos and hands-on demonstrations that address key elements of the ENMS, interactive. Other methods to promote and reinforce the health and safety awareness training sessions include communication via electronic bulletin boards, posters, newsletters, informational meetings. Now, communication in 7.4, the standard states that the organization shall determine the internal and external communications relevant to the energy management system. And this includes, again, very familiar with 14,001, on what it will communicate, when to communicate, with whom to communicate. That's a misspelling. How to communicate, and who communicates. Now, communication relates to both internal and external communication, ensuring that relevant and appropriate information is indeed communicated. A process is needed so any persons doing work under the organization's control, remember that includes not only in-house, but contractors and vendors, can make comments or suggestions to improve the energy management system or to energy performance. Now, one area that is often forgotten is communication with persons doing work under the organization's control, all right? As a rule of thumb, it is advisable to treat contractors or outsourced operations as if they were direct employees and communicate in a manner that is effective and so that the communication is two-way. By adopting this philosophy, it ensures that the persons doing work under the organization's control can contribute to continual improvement. In the case of an energy management system, the standard says that there should be a process in place so that employees and other persons under the organization's control can make comments or suggest improvements to the energy management system and to energy performance generally. The standard also asks the organization to consider retaining these suggestions as documented information. In reality, the standard says to consider it would be best practice to document these as they could be vital in improving energy performance and retaining them as a document that may be the first part of a broader improvement process. So when establishing its communication processes, the organization shall ensure that the information communicated is consistent with information generated within the energy management system and is dependable. The organization shall establish and implement a process by which any persons doing work under the organization's control can make comments and suggest improvements to ENMS and to the energy performance, as I just mentioned. The standard states that the organization shall consider retaining documented information of the suggested improvements. Now, some examples of internal communications include communicating energy objectives and targets to the employees, raising awareness of energy issues to employees, communicating the energy policy to employees, advising the non-conformance to relevant departmental heads, and reporting incidents arising from abnormal or emergency operations to senior management, to upper management. And some examples of external communications include, well, dealing with energy or environmental complaints, or proactively inviting such stakeholders or green pressure groups even to the site, and responding to media inquiries, especially in the event of an incident, and in a timely manner at that. Now, an inability to communicate effectively within the first few hours of an incident could seriously reduce the company's ability to control the situation. This will and can undermine the company's reputation in the minds of staff, customers, the media, and the public. Okay. Effective energy management requires effective communications. Now, communications will help you motivate the workforce, explain the energy management policy, both internally and externally, and how it relates to the overall business vision or strategy. Can help ensure understanding of roles and expectations. It can demonstrate management commitment. The communications will help you monitor performance and identify potential system improvements. And that leads us to 7.5, documented information. And I believe, Marcia, you're up for that?
I am, sorry. Something
No
got
worries.
covered up on my control panel.
Always a fear on my end. Yep.
I was like, wait, I can't unmute myself. All right, so 7.5 documented information. I'm going to start out with a couple definitions from the front part of the standard. So documented information is defined as information that's required to be controlled and maintained by an organization and the medium on which it is contained, right? So a lot of you probably have electronic systems, or when you're establishing your energy management system, will probably be electronic, but we do have some of our members that have paper versions, so that's something to think about. And it also can refer to the management system itself, including related processes, the information created in order for the organization to operate, more formally known as documentation, or your evidence of your results that you achieved, which is known as records. Next on. Okay. So in the annex, it has some good clarification. So documented information replaces documentation, documents, and records that was used in previous versions of the energy standard. And they use retained documented information as records. For folks that are familiar with 14,001, they say retained documented information as evidence of to mean a record. So just be aware of that. You know, if you're used to ISO 14001 and you're looking through the standard, you need to look for different words to help you recognize when you have to have documentation and keep it with your energy management system. And then they use the term maintain documented information, so for documents other than records that's supposed to be kept. So just a little different, just be aware. Okay, next. All right, so this section starts out with a general section, and then it's almost identical, or I think it is identical, except for those definitions to ISO 14001. So it says the organization's energy management system shall include the documented information required by the standard, and then anything else that you decide needs to be developed to make sure that your ENMS is effective and that it demonstrates your energy performance improvement. Okay, next on. All right. You have to create and update that documentation. So you have to ensure that you identify and describe it. So, you know, a lot of that is related to the title, dating of procedures or forms to be used as records, identifying who the author of that documentation of, and creating reference numbers that your staff will become familiar with going forward. We mentioned format readies, you know, so whether that's software or graphics. Remember, if you do any social media outreach as part of your energy management system, remember that could be considered documentation or communication that you might have to document. And then, as I mentioned before, you know, most systems are paper, or other way around, reverse that. Most systems are electronic, but we do, you know, you may have some things that are paper that make sure that you are controlling. And then you're required to review it and approve it for suitability and adequacy, right? So you need to have a process in place of who reviews specific procedures or processes, and then how you make sure those are suitable and adequate for what you want your ENMS to do. Next on. Okay, so you need to control your documentation within your energy management system. So you shall control it to ensure it's available and suitable for use when and where it is needed, right? So you want to make sure that you control it, whether that's, you know, in a central management system and folks can only get to it, whether they access that. You may prevent folks from printing things, or you may have copies on the floor for, you know, work instructions or job aids, and you may write on there controlled copy or non-controlled copy, depending on what it is. And then mostly for your records, you need to make sure that they're adequately protected. So loss of confidentiality, that would be all of your documentation, but improper use or loss of integrity, right? So if you have a record, especially if you have any of your processes where you could have a change in how you document. So, you know, if for some reason you need to have staff outside that has to take meter readings or some other effort in related to your energy management system, you may use that right in the rain paper. But sometimes either that, you know, the ink going on there may not be good, or it may not stay. So that's just something you want to think about. You know, if you've got records, do you want to scan them if you need to keep them for a period of time, both to make sure that you have they stay legible, but also so that nobody changes them. All right, next on. Okay. So the standard says, to continue on with control of documentation, that you need to address the following activities as applicable. So how you're going to distribute that out to your staff, you know, how you're going to make people aware when there's changes, how people access it, how people retrieve it and they use it. You know, some folks with those paper systems, they may have a book and then someone's responsible for changing those out. Or we were at a facility where only the supervisors had access to the EMS information, and employees needed to go to them to access it. You need to decide how you're going to store and preserve your documentation. I already talked about that legibility, but you know, with all systems being electronic, you know, how do you back that up? How do you access it if you have a power interruption or something else? I know we always talk about one of our facilities during floods. They stay dry, but everything around them gets wet. So they actually removed all of their documentation their servers and had to get that out to a remote access. So think about that, especially, because you're talking about your energy management system. What would happen if, your power went down or something else affected you, that might already be in your business continuity planning. Need to make sure that you address control of changes, so version control. But that would also be control of changes on those records, like I just mentioned. Sometimes you may need to make a change to a record. An operator or someone on your staff may have miswritten something and they want to correct it. So making sure you have that in your procedures if somebody needs to make a change. Pretty much standard is, you cross it out, you initial it, and you would date it. So you know exactly who made that change and when they did that. And then the last piece under the bullets is retention and disposition. So some of that retention may be spelled out by any regulations that affect your energy management system. For environmental regulations, it's pretty clear they spell out a minimum retention period. And most folks like to extend that for a certain time after that to make sure that they have it should they need it to look back at. And then you decide what you do once it's reached the end of that retention period. How are you going to dispose of it? Are you going to keep a copy as a legacy copy, or are you going to shred or otherwise dispose of those records? Or if those records were on a server, how do you, if you're switching out your servers, how are you going to make sure you get that information off and it doesn't stay on that server or some other sort of data storage system? And then the last part here, it says documented information of external origin that you determine is necessary for planning and operation of your energy management system shall be identified as appropriate and controlled. And I know that's one of the areas that we always have found an issue or we like to highlight for our members. So just remember, for an energy management system, if you've got equipment and you're using, an owner's manual to manage it, you may have to control that owner's manual as something that's external origin. So just think about those things when you're setting up your document management system. Next on. Yep, I thought that was the end. That's it for documentation.
Yeah, I believe we'll transition over to Angela.
All right, so we're going to talk about operational planning and control. So all of the clause 8 apply to your operational control piece. So the organization shall plan, implement, and control processes related to your significant energy users that are needed to meet the requirements and to implement the actions determined in 6.2. So that's those significant energy user definitions that you created. You have to do that by establishing criteria for the processes, including the effective operation and maintenance of your facilities, equipment, system, and energy using processes. So all of that maintenance and installation and how you're going to operate it. And then where in their absence can lead to a significant deviation from your intended energy performance. You need to communicate the criteria to relevant persons doing work under the control of your organization. Because if you don't let people know like the operation range, then how can you be sure that it is being used in the manner that you have set forth for it to be done? And then implement and control the process in accordance with the criteria, including operating and maintaining facilities, equipment, systems, and energy using processes in accordance with your established criteria. And then keeping documented information to the extent necessary to have confidence that the processes have been carried out as planned. So if you've defined something as being a significant energy user, then you have to control it, basically is what this is saying. And control can mean work instructions or software or other means of making the energy being managed properly in a way that will meet the goal that you have of reducing your energy usage. You have to set the operating parameters, including maintenance requirements, in order to work towards that goal that you've set. You also need to make sure that people who can affect that equipment or the controls of that equipment know what those parameters are, such that they don't make adjustments that counteract your purposes. You know, sometimes people don't realize that they're turning the wrong switch, or they don't realize what the numbers are that this dial needs to be between. So make sure that everyone who can potentially change your settings is aware of what the settings should be. And you can do that in many, many ways. You can put a sticker on it that says this needs to remain between this setting and this setting. You see that on thermostats all the time. You know, this thermostat should remain at 72 degrees or whatever it is, you know, or it might give you a little bit of leeway to change it if it's, you know, there. But those kinds of work instructions, be they tiny or mighty. So those are just a few examples. All right, next on. All right, continuing on with 8.1, the organization shall control planned changes and review the consequences of unintended changes, taking action to mitigate any adverse effects as necessary. And the organization shall ensure that outsourced SEUs or processes related to the SEUs are controlled. So basically this is saying if you know a change is coming, then you need to make sure that your energy usage is considered in planning that process and controlled throughout the change. Basically, if you've put a change management process in place for your environmental management system, it only makes sense to roll the energy management into that same change management process, because basically you're trying to reduce your energy. So if you're bringing a new process in, or if you're changing a current process, you're not wanting to increase your energy usage. But if you can put things in place that will help you to reduce it, whether that is putting in a more efficient piece of equipment if you're replacing something, or if you're making sure that you can track the energy of a, you know, maybe you're doing an expansion, and so keeping your energy level low, or you can use that normalization that we talked about yesterday and show that, you know, while you are adding a new system, your energy per part isn't going up or is even going down if you can have more efficient equipment making it. And then also energy usage by contractors or outside equipment that is considered significant significant to an already defined significant energy user. Also needs to be controlled as they can contribute to your energy usage as well. So if you have a contractor coming on site to do your maintenance, they need to be aware of how they can affect that energy usage. If you have a generator, for example, that goes out and you have to bring in a portable generator, so that is, you know, that outsourced equipment that might be brought on site for you, you know, you try and get the most efficient one available, those kinds of things. So just remember, all of that plays into your operational planning and control as well. All right, Dawn, next. So now we're going to talk about design. So 8.2 is all about that. So the organization shall consider energy performance improvement opportunities and operational control in the design of new, modified, and renovated facilities, equipment, systems, and energy using processes that can have a significant impact on its energy performance over the planned or expected operating lifetime. Where applicable, changes or the results of the energy performance consideration shall be incorporated into specification, design, and procurement activities, and the organization shall retain documented information of the design activities related to energy performance. So basically, this is saying that for anything new, be it a new construction project, a new product line, or a new piece of equipment, you should consider the energy impacts during the earliest stages. If you can reduce the energy impact potential before it is implemented, the better off you'll be. So for those of you who have recently been through the newest ISO 14001 standard, you know, life cycle has been a big change to that standard. And this is sort of going into life cycle on the energy side. You need to think about, before you add something in, what you can do to reduce the impact before it even occurs. So if you can design in a more efficient piece of equipment, or a more efficient lighting, maybe if you're putting in a new building, you might try and build it to LEED standards so that it is more energy efficient in the first place, as opposed to building a standard construction and then fighting, you know, air gaps and lighting issues and things like that all the way along. So basically, this is saying, think about what you're doing before you actually implement a new project, and you have to document that process as well. Next. All right, procurement. So again, talking about life cycle, this is the purchasing piece. So the organization shall establish and implement criteria for evaluating energy performance over the planned or expected operating lifetime when procuring energy using products, equipment, and services, which are expected to have a significant impact on your organization's energy performance. So this is thinking about not just the amount of energy that it's going to take to install it, not just the amount of energy it's going to take when you first start it up, but over the life of that piece of equipment, what you can do, how that energy is going to either go up or down, because a lot of times, like for example, motors, efficiency goes way down the older it gets. And so how can you make sure that you are purchasing something up front that is going to give you the best energy demand over the life of that piece of equipment, as opposed to just at its very beginning. Then when procuring energy using products, equipment, and services that have or can have an impact on your significant energy users, the organization shall inform suppliers that energy performance is one of the evaluation criteria for procurement. So you need to tell people when you send out those requests for quotes that you are going to be looking at that energy usage as one of your decision-making criteria. And then where applicable, the organization shall define and communicate specifications for ensuring the energy performance of procured equipment and services and the purchase of energy. So you should incorporate policies like only purchasing Energy Star rated office equipment, designing new buildings to that LEED standard or Energy Star requirements. Even if you don't go for those certifications, you know, putting those criteria in place might help you to reduce the energy impact. You might want to include energy usage and tracking devices as part of your decision criteria when putting equipment out for quotes. And you also have to let your suppliers know, as I mentioned. Also, you know, when you put that out there to your suppliers, they might have equipment that you didn't realize was available to you because you've always purchased a certain type of motor, let's say. Maybe you didn't realize that they had a more efficient one available because all they've ever quoted you on was the one that you asked for. So if you say, hey, you know, energy efficiency is going to be part of our decision-making criteria, they may actually have a more efficient one to quote you on. It never hurts to ask, basically, is what I'm saying. Next.
Okay. That takes us out to performance evaluation. Are we moving on, or do we need a break? Or
I think we can move on unless anyone has questions. So what we just made it through is the do section of the plan, do, check, act cycle. So you've made it through two pieces of that circle. Does anyone have any questions on either the planning or the doing of the standard?
I don't see any in the questions.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we can go on then, Don.
all right, and so we shall. So performance evaluation, clause 9. The emphasis is on evaluating energy performance and the ENMS. The section also explains requirements for internal auditing and gives a detailed explanation of the management review. So in the ISO 50001 standard, 9.1 focuses on the elements of the energy management system that need to be monitored, measured, analyzed, and evaluated, and when these procedures should be carried out. Additionally, any significant deviations in energy performance should be investigated and responded to. Now, compliance with legal and other requirements should also be evaluated. So the clause involves the implementation of the data collection plan, which is 6.6, and evaluation of both energy performance improvement and the effectiveness of your energy management system. Now, Angela was very nice enough to cover some of this in yesterday's discussion. I believe it was in 6.4 off the bat as well. And I'm going to reinforce some of it and hopefully add some new information and perspective to it as well. But in the standard 911, the organization shall determine for energy performance and the energy management system what needs to be monitored and measured, including at a minimum the following key characteristics. All right, the effectiveness of the action plans and achieving objectives and energy targets, your energy performance indicators, all right, your ENPIs, your operation of significant energy uses, those are your SCUs. And again, we'll define these in a bit. And the actual versus expected energy consumption. And the methods for monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation to ensure that we get valid, repeatable, and reliable results. So the energy performance indicator is a measure of energy intensity used to gauge the effectiveness of your energy management efforts. The ENPI is a regression analysis tool developed by the U.S. Department of Energy that you can also utilize to help managers normalize baseline of energy consumption. It can be used to track annual improvements, energy savings, and superior energy performances as well. Another term we cover was the significant energy use, your SEU. Your SEU is a key concept within ISO 50001 that is defined as energy use accounting for energy use accounting for substantial energy consumption and or offering considerable potential for energy performance improvement. Now, significant criteria are determined by the organization. Your SEUs can be facilities, systems, processes, or even equipment. Okay. Now, this will now allow you to determine when monitoring and measurement shall be performed and when the results from monitoring and measurement shall be analyzed and evaluated. The final step is to evaluate data created from the implementation of the energy data collection plan with a view to drawing conclusion on energy performance and the effectiveness of the energy management section, as stated in 6.6. Now, most importantly and critical to ensuring the ability to demonstrate continual improvement is the need to confirm that improvement in energy performance has been evaluated by comparing energy performance indicator values, again in 6.4, against the corresponding baselines, your energy baselines. Now, energy performance improvement can be demonstrated by improvements in energy performance indicator values over time relative to the corresponding energy baselines. There can be situations where energy performance improvement is achieved from an activity that is not related to a significant energy use or key characteristic. In those instances, your energy performance indicator and energy baseline can be established to demonstrate energy performance improvement. Where there are significant deviations in energy performance, the standard says that they must be investigated. When conducting analysis, the limitations of the data, the accuracy, precision, measurement, or even uncertainty and consistency of energy accounting should be taken into account before reaching final conclusions. And this needs to include the frequency of the monitoring and measurement. And you can see here a figure I came across, which is a diagram that shows the relationship between your energy performance indicators, and your energy baselines and energy targets, and how it all comes together. Your energy performance, it's all comprised of your energy consumption, your energy use, your energy efficiencies, and you'll have a target that you can establish. Your energy baseline is established. That improvement is showed there on the chart as well. Now, in 6.3, your energy review requires people who impact SEUs to be identified as significant energy users. This includes those who either have hands-on control of significant energy use or have decision-making capability to impact significant energy use. This often means top management, procurement, and design colleagues, as well as operational staff, your energy team members that we mentioned yesterday, and anyone else under the control of the organization, such as your consultants, contractors, service partners, vendors. When conducting this analysis, the limitations of the data, which includes accuracy, precision, measurement, uncertainty, and the consistency of energy accounting should be taken into account before reaching final conclusions. As we move on to 9.1.2, the evaluation of compliance with legal requirements and other requirements. So the standard states that at planned intervals, again, you determine what these intervals are, but at planned intervals, the organization shall evaluate compliance with legal and other requirements, as stated in 4.2, related to its energy efficiency, energy use, and energy consumption, and the energy management system. The standard states that the organization shall retain documented information on the results of the evaluation of compliance and any actions taken. Now, once you have determined your compliance obligation, now you must evaluate your compliance. Here you must plan and implement a process to evaluate if you meet the legal requirements that are applicable to you and your organization as determined. This process needs to include the frequency of compliance evaluation, how often you are going to check to see if you meet the requirements of particular legislation. This will vary from law to law, but your process needs to determine how often you will check each level of compliance. For example, you may need to continually check the concentration of chemicals you are emitting into your sewage system, but you may only need to periodically check on how well you are diverting recycling from your landfill waste. So it differs. There's nothing cookie cut about this. You all have particular rules and regs to adhere to. So evaluate and take action. Now, this is the step that everyone thinks about when it comes to the requirements of legal compliance, and this requirement has not changed. As an organization, you need to make an assessment against the applicable laws to see if you meet the requirements and take any actions necessary to become compliant if you are not. Something we covered a lot in 14,001. Be up to date on your rules and regs. You can check with your, in our case, North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, and that the regulatory division that's applicable to your needs. Contact your regional inspectors, contact Environmental Stewardship Initiative. If you don't know what road to take, we'll be very happy to assist you with that. Contact our technical assistance phone team. They'll do the same thing for you. The information is out there. Sometimes you just need proper guidance and need to know which road to take. Maintain the status of your compliance. In other words, always know if you actually comply with your legal requirements. If a law changes, you need to know about it and to know if the change affects your compliance with the law. If you make a change in your facility, you may need to evaluate whether you still obey all the laws, definitely, both during and after the change, even if you are not set to evaluate this according to your regular schedule. So, as in the case with ISO 14001 and 45001, an organization has to evaluate and document the result of compliance with its legal requirements pertaining to energy efficiency use, consumption, and the energy management system, and any other energy-related energy requirements that an organization treats in the same way as legislation. In practice, the range and scope of energy-related legislation that can impact an organization can be limited in number. Essentially, a list of appropriate legal and other requirements can be compiled. Then an organization can determine if compliance is being achieved by sampling the appropriate evidence. So in many organizations, this will entail an audit, right? Perhaps annually, to determine that the specific legal and other requirements are being met. Right? The result of such an audit will establish the compliance status. And when I state the audit, we're talking about an in-house audit. Hey, this is a learning opportunity to make sure that you are in compliance, that you're avoiding non-conformity. And that leads us to 9.2, internal audit.
Okay. So internal auditing, for those of you who are in the ISO 14000 world along with us, it's very similar in the energy management system as it is to the environmental management system. So basically, the standard says the organization shall conduct internal audits of your energy management system at planned intervals, so you still get to choose how often you do it, to provide information on whether your management system is improving your energy performance. So in the case of the energy management system, it is a performance related goal. So you do have to, during your internal audit, look at those numbers and see if they're going the right direction. But you also want to know if your management system conforms to your own requirements for your ENMS, the energy policy objectives and energy targets that are established by your organization, as well as the requirements of the standard itself. And then you want to make sure that it's effectively implemented and maintained. So internal audits of your ENMS can be performed by employees of the organization, maybe that energy management team that you've put together. You could recruit your folks from your your environmental management system or your quality management system. We've seen a lot of sister management system folks help with internal audits along the way. It can be done by external people that have been selected by your organization. Maybe you have a consultant who comes in and does this on your behalf if you can't achieve that independence from your system, or if you just want an extra set of eyes. Auditor independence can be demonstrated by an auditor by being free from the responsibility for the activity itself that's being audited. So maybe your auditor is in the thick of, one part of your management system, but not all of it. And so they could help you with auditing the pieces that they are not personally responsible for, and then someone else can audit them on that piece. An energy audit or an energy assessment is not the same thing as an internal audit of your energy management system. However, part of the internal audit of an energy management system must include a review of your performance. Is what you're doing actually having a positive effect? The audit must also review the system to see if it meets the requirements of the standard. So all these shall statements that we've been talking about all the way through, and all of these documented information requirements, all of those need to be addressed and make sure that they're being met. And it needs to review whether you're meeting the requirements you set for yourself, like work instructions and procedures and training requirements and schedules and things like that. All right, next on. The standard also says the organization shall plan, establish, implement, and maintain an audit program, including the frequency, methods, responsibilities, planning requirements, and reporting, which shall take into account consideration of the importance of the process concerned and the results of previous audits. So basically it's saying you're going to set up a system of how frequently you're going to perform these audits, what you're going to look at, and all of that. And when you're doing that, you need to make sure that things that have had issues in the past are looked at more frequently. Your significant energy users, those areas of your system need to probably be looked at more frequently, because those are the things with the highest impact and will have the most effect on your system. You also shall define the audit criteria and scope for each audit. You're going to select auditors and conduct audits to ensure objectivity and impartiality of the audit process. Ensure that the results of the audits are reported to relevant management. So, internal audits is just one of the things that goes into your management review, but not all of the middle managers are necessarily in that management review. So sometimes if it's directly in one person's area, then they also need to be aware of the results of your audits. You need to take appropriate actions in accordance with 10.1 and 10.2. So that's the whole corrective action system. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then you need to retain documented information as evidence of the implementation of your audit program and the audit results. So this is all about planning for those audits, setting their frequency, determining who your auditors are going to be, determining how you're going to document the results, and making sure issues are addressed and reported to the appropriate managers. All right, Don?
And it's back my way.
Mm-hmm.
Are we continuing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we can get through the rest of this very quickly.
We're in the stretch run. Now, I get a little worried in this section, but that's okay. So 9.3, management review. A management review is a formal, structured meeting which involves top management and takes place at regular intervals throughout the year. They are a critical and required part of running an ISO certified management system, such as your energy management system. The purpose of a management review meeting is to review and evaluate the effectiveness of the ENMS, helping you to determine its continued suitability and adequacy. Okay? The management review does this by encouraging top management to consider the degree by which the ENMS achieves the expected results, meets the organization's requirements, functions in accordance with the established operating procedures and processes, and is capable of identifying nonconformities and monitoring subsequent corrective and preventive actions. A management review also ensures that all levels of management are made aware of any changes, updates, revisions to the day-to-day workings of the management system itself. Now, the standard states in 9.3.1 that top management shall review the organization's energy management system at plan intervals to ensure its continuing suitability, adequacy, effectiveness, and alignment with the strategic direction of the organization. The management review covers the entire scope of the energy management system, although not all elements of the energy management system need to be reviewed at once. Okay? The review process can take place over a period of time. Okay, a series of events. Again, you dictate the schedule. Now, as I just mentioned, the review should be carried out at planned intervals, including the status of actions already agreed and any changes to internal and external issues relevant to your energy management system. Remember that the review should also take into account your risk and opportunities, information on your energy management system performance, your energy performance improvement, and the extent to which objectives and energy targets have been achieved. The output of the review should be an assessment of the effectiveness of your energy management system, actions to achieve objectives and implications for changes to the ENMS, and business strategies. This is all included. In 932, the standard states that management review shall include consideration of the following: the status of actions from previous management reviews, of course. This, this is also to ensure any proper closeouts that were talked about previously. Consideration of changes in external and internal issues and those associated risks and opportunities that are relevant to the energy management system. Consideration of information on the energy management system performance, including trends in nonconformities and those corrective actions. Monitoring and the measurement results, your audit results, and the results of the evaluation of compliance with legal requirements and other requirements. Opportunities for continual improvement, including those for competence, that should be considered. And of course, overall, your energy policy. This indeed is not static, and that continual improvement is key to this. In 933, the energy performance inputs to management review shall include the extent to which objectives and energy targets have been met. Are they falling short? Are you on target? Are you exceeding those expectations? Shall include energy performance and energy performance improvements based on monitoring and measurement results, including the energy performance indicators, and shall include the status of your action plans. Where do you stand, what's next, and how to get there? Now, 934, the outputs of the management review shall include decisions related to continual improvement opportunities and any need for changes to the energy management system. This includes opportunities to improve energy performance, the energy policy, the energy performance indicators or energy baselines, as we mentioned earlier, your objectives, energy targets, action plans, or other elements of the energy management system and actions to be taken if they are not achieved. Opportunities to improve integration with business processes. How do you intertwine all this? The allocation of resources. Who's being shorted of those resources? How can you better divvy it up to ensure success overall? And the improvement of competence, awareness, and communication. The standard states that the organization shall retain documented information as evidence of the results of management reviews. Now note that there is a difference between management meetings and management reviews. A management meeting may address day-to-day working practices, sales, production, resources, and staffing matters, but the management review focuses solely on the requirements of the management system, okay, as described within your manual or your documented information. Now, the widest ranging and strategic evaluation of performance is your management review process. The management review must be carried out by top management. They must be a part of this and should essentially be based upon factual input generated by your energy management system in order to make recommendations and improvements going forward. What are those outputs? The standard is helpful in providing a framework of what a management review should entail, and it's suggested that these headings are used in the documented information that is produced by an organization. So once again, reviewing whether the status of performance gives a good indication whether improvement is or is not being achieved. This can be produced in a variety of different ways, but text, data tables or graphs, these are widely used. Status of the action plans that have been generated to provide a framework to improvement are reviewed to see if they're being undertaken, but also achieving what was anticipated. Now, I mentioned that the documented information that is produced by the organization should be utilized by the management reviews. Okay, the status of actions from previous management reviews, this should be a summary to what extent previous management review actions have been carried out or not carried out, and the reasons as to why. Some organizations produce a comparative table. There are changes in this review, the external and internal and associated risk and opportunities issues that are relevant to your energy management system. Changes in relation to external and external issues should be explained. The information on the NMS performance should include trends. These trends could include nonconformities and corrective actions, include monitoring and measurement results, your audit results, your results of the evaluation of compliance with legal requirements and other requirements. Okay. Other aspects for the management review should include your energy policy. A review of your energy policy can be whether it is still fit for purpose or whether it needs to be changed as the organization has changed in some way. Again, this is not static, continual improvement. The extent to which objectives and energy targets have been met, reviewing whether the objectives and energy targets have been targeted needs to be carried out. And this can be produced, as I said, in a variety of different ways. Okay. So once again, reviewing whether the status of performance gives a good indication whether improvement is or is not being achieved. Okay. So top management is essential, and we stated this in the 14,001 overview and module series as well. You have to, I believe I mentioned it earlier, as called it the buy-in, because if you do not have the support, chances are you're not going to get the resources needed, or the time, or the staff, or the financial needs. So management review, it is not a static situation. And that leads us to improvement.
All right, so that also ends the check portion of the plan, do, check, act cycle. So what you notice there, you've got management review, you've got internal auditing, you've got measurement and analysis. So all of those things can actually lead you to need to put in improvement processes. So that's leading you to the act portion of the standard. So Dawn, if you want to go on. The ACT section of the standard is actually pretty short. So it has basically two clauses. You've got the nonconformity and corrective action, and then you've got continual improvement. So those are the actions that you take based on all of this information that you've been bringing in throughout your system. So the standard says that when a nonconformity is identified, and you're identifying those nonconformities in your internal audits, but you might get them from an external audit, you might get them from a customer, you might get them from an issue that you notice when you're doing your analysis of your data. So nonconformities can come from anywhere. But it says your organization shall react to that nonconformity as applicable, take actions to control and correct it, and deal with consequences, which makes sense. You know, when you find something wrong, the first thing you're supposed to do is fix it, right? Deal with anything that might be a bigger issue. And then once you've got it under control, then you evaluate the need for action to eliminate the cause of the nonconformity in order that it doesn't reoccur or occur somewhere else. And you do that by reviewing that nonconformity, determining the cause of the nonconformity. So you're looking for root cause here. You don't want to just fix the symptoms. You want to go in for the full cure. And then determining if similar nonconformities exist or could potentially occur. Then you need to implement any of the actions necessary from that review process, review the effectiveness of those corrective actions that you took, and then make changes to your management system if necessary. So let's say there was an issue that would require you to change your work instruction. Then you need to make sure that you're updating that work instruction or putting in proper signage or whatever it is that you need to implement in order to make sure it doesn't happen again. This is all about making sure that when things go wrong, you not only fix that problem, but you're putting systems in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. All right, Don, next. So corrective actions shall be appropriate to the effects of the encountered nonconformities, and the organization shall retain documented information of the nature of the nonconformity, subsequent actions taken, and the results of your corrective action. So basically this is saying, you know, the bigger the issue, the more substantial your response to that issue is going to be. And then you also need to, of course, document not only what happened and what you did about it, but whether or not it was effective. Remember, you have to document those results of those corrective actions too. So don't think that the end of your corrective action process is putting that solution in place. You then later need to go back and verify that the solution that you settled on was actually effective, because a lot of times people will, you know, they'll go in and they'll think they fixed it, but really it didn't work the way they thought it would. And so you make sure that that reevaluation piece is part of your corrective action system. Next. All right, this is the last section in the standard. You've almost made it through. So continual improvement. You know, we've said multiple times that all of the ISO standards are all about continual improvement. And so they've all started to have this element as the last thing that you see when you're finished reading it. So the organization shall continually improve your suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness of your energy management system. I kept wanting to say environmental. And the organization shall demonstrate continual energy performance improvement. So in most cases, you know, our ISO 14001 basically stops with that first sentence. But since this is a more prescriptive, more performance-oriented standard, it does say that you have to demonstrate continual energy performance improvement. So that means you need to show those numbers going the right direction, which is why that normalization is going to be your friend, especially if you end up having to expand or otherwise increase your actual energy usage. But when you compare it to your production or to your work hours or whatever, it works out that you're actually not having the same demand per widget that you're making or whatever. All right, so that's the end of the standard. Does anyone have any questions at all about anything that we talked about over the last couple of days? All right, so I'm going to talk through a few resources that are out there. Like I said, this isn't really our level of expertise here. We wanted to do this overview for you because we've had so many members request a little bit more information on the 50001 standard. So we wanted to give you as much as we could, but when you start digging into it, you're going to need more help than we can provide you. So the first one on here, we actually have a gap analysis tool that is one of the handouts that's in this GoToWebinar software. So if you see the two handouts, one of them is the set of slides from the past 2 days, and the other one is a gap analysis tool. And basically, it goes through the standard and it asks you if you've implemented that shall statement. And you can say yes, no, or partially, right? And at the end of that, there's a tab. It's an Excel spreadsheet. There's a tab that allows you to click on it, and it gives you a visual representation of your gap, you know, how close you are to actually being done with the standard, and it's a bar chart basically, so you can kind of see where you need the most work. So it's a nice little tool if you want to do your own gap analysis. The second thing on here is Waste Reduction Partners. We mentioned that we partner with them a lot. Their manager is actually one of our employees, but all of the folks that work underneath him are retired scientists and engineers that work out of the Land to Sky Regional Council offices. But they're great. They have a lot more time and energy to put back out there into the world. And so if you need an energy assessment or some help figuring out, you know, what motors to choose or anything like that, they are great to work with. So their contact information, their website is up there, or you can reach out to us and we can connect you. We've had multiple folks within our program actually work with Advanced Energy and go through their cohort. And what they do through that cohort is learn about the DOE's 50001 Ready Navigator tool. So I gave you links to both Advanced Energy in case you want to be a part of their next cohort, where different organizations all learn together and share with each other their progress towards making it through the Ready Navigator tool. And the Ready Navigator tool is basically, it's kind of like a TurboTax kind of thing. It's a lot like our gap analysis thing, except that it's on their website, and you can go through it step by step, and it will help you to develop that 50001 system that in theory would be ready for certification when you're done implementing it. So that's why it's called 50001 Ready. And if you choose to get certified from there, great. If not, that's okay too. You can self-certify. And then finally, I ran across a note the other day that UNC Charlotte, the U.S. Department of Energy announced funding for university-based industrial assessment centers, which assist small and medium-sized manufacturers in reducing their carbon emissions and lowering energy costs while training the next generation of energy efficiency workers. So UNC Charlotte was one of the recipients of that grant, and the contact information from that grant is here as well. I know NC State has a very similar program that does a lot of energy work as well, and I'm sure there are others, other universities within the state and outside as well that could provide you with assistance. But I did happen to see that UNC Charlotte got a grant for small and medium-sized manufacturers, so I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. Okay, so that's all I've got. Dawn, Marsha, do you have anything else you want to share?
No, I'd just like to thank everybody for attending, and feel free to utilize the materials and share them, and yeah, we're all in this together.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you will have a survey when you close out. If you could please fill that out for us. You can cover both days. If you didn't happen to fill it out yesterday, that's fine. because it really helps us to improve. If this was something that was helpful to you, just having this overview, great. If you need more information, let us know that too, and we can potentially work on other stuff. But like I said, this isn't really our expertise. We're more on the environmental side, with energy is just one of our many focuses. So thank you all for attending. We appreciate your patience with us. We will send out an email to everyone who registered once we have the links posted to our website, so that you have access to not only the 2 handouts that we put in here, but also to the recordings, in case you want to share those with others, or you just want to go back and refer to them for yourself. So thank you all. Have a great afternoon.